Greetings, I'm Sergei Burkotowski. I'm the lead game designer for Wargaming. Many people already know who I am, and those who don't will get to know me soon.
In the 8.3 update, several artillery parameters were changed. What caused these changes?
The short answer is that artillery was not balanced within the current scope of the game. We try to balance each tank with respect to their win-loss ratio. Artillery is balanced separately, in relation to other SPGs, so it makes things a little tricky. This practice eventually caught up with us and created an imbalance. SPGs had too much influence in every match, so we had to scale back their abilities.
Does this decision result from plans to introduce Tier 10 SPGs?
On one hand, artillery currently influences the outcome of games more than necessary. On the other hand, introducing Tier 10 artillery will correct some of the issues surrounding this subject. Currently, artillery only has 8 tiers, and this results in an odd distribution of SPGs in different levels of battles. Having Tier 10 SPGs will likely smooth out the distribution, but shouldn't make artillery too powerful.
Could you tell us more about the changes in the tech tree? Do you plan to introduce new vehicles for Tiers 9 and 10, or do you plan to buff the existing ones?
We plan to stretch the existing line. I mean, currently we have Tier 2 and Tier 8 artillery. What we'll do is move the Tier 8 artillery to Tier 10 and add some new vehicles in the middle tiers. I want to stress the fact that we are not increasing SPG characteristics when we change its tier. I say that we won't buff it, but we may make slight adjustments, though we hope that will be unnecessary.
So if you already have Tier 8 SPGs in your garage, you'll have to research it again at Tier 10?
No, you won't need to do that. The vehicle has already been researched. I mean, if you have Tier 8 artillery researched or in your garage, it will turn into the Tier 10 artillery. You'll have the same vehicle with the same characteristics, with only this small number at the corner changed from 8 to 10, that's all.
Do you think that the overall gameplay will change when you introduce Tier 10 SPGs? Will it be more difficult?
I think everything will stay the same. At present, Tier 8 SPGs already go into top-tier battles. After we make the changes, they'll just be marked as Tier 10 SPGs. In truth, these are minor changes. Nothing really serious. It's barely worth mentioning.
When do you plan to introduce Tier 10 SPGs?
Come on, you know the answer. As soon as possible, ASAP.
Let's discuss the changes in detail. Why did you nerf view range and hit points? How will this affect gameplay?
In an attempt to decrease the number of SPGs more naturally, we changed some of their overall effectiveness. But we aren't bad guys, so we try to do this in tiny increments. In an ideal situation, artillery shoots from a distance, behind cover, and no one sees you. These changes don't affect that. It simply makes those times when you are spotted a little more uncomfortable. Artillery relies heavily on their team. You can't play by yourself. The idea is that we want them to be vulnerable in close combat. Fundamentally, its role stays the same, and only its weaknesses have been modified, keeping it closer to the original idea for artillery.
What happened to the Su-26? It's a favorite among the players.
You see, the players have the option to choose their favorite tank. We don't. And when a vehicle, a tank, or an SPG becomes imbalanced, we need to take action. That's precisely what happened to the Su-26. C'est la vie, guys, c'est la vie. We don't make World of Su-26, we make World of Tanks.
Why did you nerf French artillery so significantly?
That falls under the same heading as artillery balance in general. The French SPGs are just a good example of overperformance that needed to be brought back into the equilibrium with the rest of the vehicles. They benefited from this imbalance while we've been collecting the data, but it's time to make the correction. The statistical information has been analyzed, and we've spotted which attributes need to be adjusted. So it's time.
The players are curious about the new limitation on artillery. Why are there 5 units allowed? Is it possible to make it 3?
There were simply too many high-tier games with massive amounts of artillery. Artillery is imbalanced, so many people have been playing it. That's part of the reason why we need a maximum cap on artillery. If the limit is 3 SPGs per battle, the result is awful queue times. It messes with the matchmaker too much, so until we move to Tier 10 artillery, this is a temporary arrangement. We're partly addressing the problem through rebalancing. Once we have the rebalancing and other changes in, it'll even out.
Are you going to introduce battles without artillery?
Such battles may appear occasionally, when there are no SPGs waiting in the queue. We don't plan to make battles without SPGs or TDs, or without light tanks or medium tanks. No.
Why are there so many light tanks in some battles? Do you plan to fix it somehow?
The same as before. In some battles, you see too many light tanks, and that's simply because so many people are waiting to play in those particular tanks. More light tanks in the queue will mean more battles with more light tanks. We can't keep them waiting, and light tanks are not as specific as artillery, so we don't plan to remove them from the queue or put restrictions on them for now.
Not so long ago, you introduced the British line of tanks. Now we are waiting for the Chinese tanks, but they don't feature artillery.
There are always many reasons, and they are different in each case. In regard to the British, we haven't had the time resources to build a quality artillery line yet. In regard to the Chinese tanks, we haven't formed their complete SPG list yet. Historically, China has not revealed much information about their defense programs during the era we're interested in. The fact that we received information about their engineering projects and formed 2 lines of medium and heavy tanks is a real miracle. That means they respect our company. We will be able to form these lines when our Chinese colleagues have completed their research of the Chinese TDs and SPGs. And the British vehicles? They are next in line. They will appear soon as possible. I can understand why players are anxious to see them, and it's something we're excited about too. We're going to get there, but some people will still worry. Other people will just play the game and won't worry about rumors or updates or when or if something will happen. Guys, everything is